Magic Corn and Cow Poop Poultices by Dennis M. Morrison. This was, I used to be a home health aide, and what I'm about to relate to you was shared with me by a client that I had up in Curran, Michigan, and she was at the time that she told me this in her late 80s. She's since gone home to be with the Lord, but she was a really interesting person to talk with, and this is the story that she told to me. She said, "I was only 7 years old when I stayed with my Uncle Jerry and Aunt Hannah on their farm near Guston, Michigan. This was the summer of 1929, and it was magical for me. No matter how long I live, I will never forget their kindness and my first experience with farm life. My dad worked on trains in Saginaw, Michigan, and he received a really bad injury. Mom was having a hard time making ends meet while Dad was off work. Us kids, 8 and all, got moved about to different relatives until things at home got better. I missed Dad and Mom, but my uncle and aunt did their very best to make me feel at home on the farm. As far as money, I'd say that they were poor, but being on a farm, at least with food, there wasn't much we wanted for. The basement was filled with canned goods, baskets of red, ripe apples and pears, and there were bags of potatoes, carrots, all manner of good things to eat, and the pantry was stocked with all sorts of staple foods. Next to the wood cook stove was a huge crock. This was where meat was stored, and with no refrigeration. When Uncle or one of the farm hands killed a squirrel or a rabbit, they'd dress it, and Auntie would lay it in the big crock. She poured grease over it, over the meat, to seal it, and the grease, of course, was a byproduct of cooking other meats. She did that over and over, making layer upon layer. The meat sealed there stayed fresh. It was a meat market right next to that old wood stove. The first time I had popcorn was on the farm. One night before bed, Auntie asked if I wanted a special treat, and I was all for that. With one hand she took my hand, and with the other she carried a kerosene lamp. We went way upstairs to the attic. I'd never gone up there before. It was very dark, and I remember that it scared me. And hanging from the rafters were small ears of corn, and they looked all dried up. Setting the lamp down, Aunt Hannah lifted me up and told me to pull down an ear. She told me it was a magic ear of corn, and soon we went back down to the kitchen with that magic ear of corn. Uncle Jerry had built a fire in the cook stove. I helped to take the little kernels off the ear, and Aunt Hannah put them into a pot on the stove, adding some oil to it. She kept shaking the pot around, and soon there came a popping sound from inside. When it was done, she poured butter and salt all over the white puffs, and I loved popcorn ever since. Uncle Jerry had a few men who helped out on the farm, and there were occasional injuries. One of the men, whose name was Frank, was from Czechoslovakia, and he was a healer. His methods, though, were rather unusual. You see, he used cow poop for just about everything. Aunt Hannah's niece, Stephanie, came one day from Lincoln and insisted on helping Auntie hang out laundry. The grass over by the clothesline had grown quite tall. Well, we heard Stephanie scream out in pain, and she fell to the ground crying and screaming louder and louder, and we all ran out to see what was the matter. She had stepped on the tines of a garden rake that she had not seen laying in the grass. It was embedded in the sole of her foot. Uncle Jerry had to pull it out. Then he scooped her up in his arms and carried her into the house, laying her on the bed in the main bedroom. "I'll get Frank," Uncle said, and that made Stephanie scream even more because she knew what Frank was going to smear all over her foot, and she wanted none of that smelly stuff on her leg and foot. Well, I went out with Uncle to get Frank, and we followed him into the cow barn. Frank took a clean white cloth and gathered fresh cow manure. In the bedroom, he got Stephanie to calm down, then packed her foot with the manure and wrapped it with a clean white cloth. In a short time, the cloth hardened just like a plaster cast. Frank said to Stephanie to be quiet and rest, and her foot would be better in no time at all, and Frank was right. He came back that evening and cut off the cast, and I swear the foot was not red or swollen, and I could hardly see where the injury had been. People came from all over for Frank's unique healing talents. I heard him explain at least part of his secret. The manure had to be completely fresh, right as it came out of the cow's back end. If it hit the ground or the floor, it was of no use. Dad and Mom came up towards the end of summer. They were thinking about moving up to the farm till Dad's recovery was complete. Mom, though, did not quite fit in. She was a city girl and had problems with some of the farm life. For example, the toilet arrangements. The farm had a two-hole outhouse, and at night there were honey pots to use, or chamber pots. The pot had to be taken out in the morning and emptied, and for some reason Mom was embarrassed by that and really did not want to do it. One morning she got embarrassed, the embarrassment of her life. She opened the bedroom window and was going to toss the contents of the pot out the window. Well, as she turned to get the pot, the window slid down, and she went to heave the pot, lost her grip, and it flew from her hands, smashing the window to pieces. She never did live that one down. And my mom also had a small Cocker Spaniel dog named Muggsy. Muggsy put a temporary halt to the plan of moving to the farm. Auntie Hannah had a big 20-pound sack of sugar sitting on the pantry floor. Mom caught Muggsy lifting his leg one day and doing his duty at the bottom of the bag of sugar. Again, she was too embarrassed to tell what happened, so she turned the bag around so that the stain would not be seen and announced we were heading back home to Saginaw. We didn't come back to the farm until she was certain that the sugar would be gone. I was really sorry to leave because the farm was an exciting place for a kid my age. We didn't return, though, as I said, until we were certain that that sugar was gone. I went back to Uncle Jerry's farm a lot of times, but the most memorable time I ever had there was that summer in 1929.